Welcome to the meeting of the Eden District Council Cabinet, and thank you for having us in Appleby. It's a pleasure. So we've had an interesting meeting with the Town Council, before the meeting proper starts, many of you, I don't know who here, will remember Councillor Potts, and who has been a great servant of Appleby for many, many years. And I'd just like to pass to Councillor Greenwood to say a few words about Hughie.
Thank you. Could we have a stand up? I've been asked by the leader to say a few words about Councillor Hugh Potts of Appleby, who sadly passed away on Thursday night, aged 72. He was the father of Appleby Town Council, a devoted councillor for whom nothing was too much trouble for 39 years. He led the council as mayor at least twice over the years, helped and supported by his wife Anne. I remember his kindness and encouragement to me personally over the last 18 years, especially when I was elected to Eden District Council and became mayoress this year. His wise and sensible advice I will always remember. Watching him chair the town council and public meetings and dealing with other challenging situations was a masterclass in itself, and I learned a lot from him and have a lot to be grateful for. His kindness, especially to the children of the town, will always be remembered, as will his generosity. He will be missed by those who knew him, and we think especially of his family at this time, Anne, Freddie, Kenny, and his little granddaughter, and all his friends and employees. Let us take a minute's silence as a sign of respect.
Thank you very much. So, to proceed to the business of the evening, agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? Full house. Congratulations, everybody. Everybody's got COVID. And the minutes of the last meeting, I trust that everybody's checked the minutes of the last meeting, and I would like to declare them to be a true record of the meeting. Do I have a second? Councillor Greenwood, sorry. Councillor Greenwood, thank you very much. And everybody, thank you very much for the agenda item 3, declarations of interests. So this is to receive any declarations of the interest and nature of private interests, both disclosable, pecuniary, and any other registrable interests in any matter being considered or being considered. Councillor Sharp.
Item 11, the playground fund and secretary of the Alston Recreation Ground, which was one of the 2 community groups. So I'll abstain from that vote.
We'll abstain from that vote. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 4 is questions and representations from the public. And we do have one question for this evening. from Mr. Davis. So Mr. Davis, would you like to
Yeah,
question? Thank you.
Eden Council has over the last 2 years continued with its plans for Vereda House. Despite original planning applications being refused by this very council, Eden Council, as the developer, was then forced to change the plans for Vereda House after issues emerged that the original plans would have risked crushing the building with the weight of the proposed cladding. Despite local government reorganisation, Eden Council's ploughed on with its single site plans. Now it's emerged that the building has had asbestos not discovered until demolition work was underway, and then the discovery that the building's structural integrity had been compromised. This now results in costs increasing of 1.47 million. Can the leader confirm the level of pre-purchase, and pre-work commencement building surveys and due diligence that was conducted by Eden Council, and why the number of structural related issues from asbestos to the integrity of the building was not known before a single screw was removed from the original Vereda House building?
Thank you very much for your question, which I'm pleased to answer, as no one is more disappointed than I am that costs have risen to deliver the project. In terms of the initial due diligence, I can confirm that in September 2019, a valuation report and a full building general and structural condition report were commissioned from our property advisors Walton Goodland prior to the purchase for Vereda House being agreed. I can also confirm that, as a follow-up to the initial survey and to provide further assurances, a specific asbestos survey was commissioned from specialist consultants, which identified a small quantity of low-risk asbestos material associated with the building's heating system. This survey was also undertaken prior to entering into the construction contract. The material was removed safely by the construction contractor as part of the internal demolition of the programme and was not significant in terms of quantity, cost or programme. During this process, no further asbestos materials were detected. In August 2021, the Council commissioned a drainage survey which identified some silting of the drains but did not identify the presence of asbestos. In addition to the asbestos-related surveys, the Council also commissioned electrical and lift surveys as part of the approach to due diligence. The fact is that the additional asbestos and structural issues that are contributing to the increase in costs were not and could not have been identified prior to construction commencing, and were uncovered when the main fabric of the building was being stripped back and groundworks carried out. This required further tests and surveys to be undertaken to establish the structural integrity of the building following historical damage identified to the main supports and impact of carbonisation. When the building was stripped back, it was found that the main support struts on the two upper floors had been cut through at some point to accommodate cables which required additional steel supports to remedy the damage, and the areas of carbonisation identified. And areas of carbonisation were identified which weakens the fabric of concrete and also needed specialist treatment. During construction, additional asbestos was identified in two areas which could not have been identified previously. The first and less significant area was located in the insulation behind the external concrete tiles. The concrete tiles formed part of the structural integrity of the building and required a bespoke steel cradle and overhead crane to safely remove. The second, more impactful area was associated with the drains below the undercroft. This was only identified when the area was fully excavated and resulted in the asbestos and associated contaminated ground requiring removal prior to construction being allowed to continue. Do you have a supplement?
I do, yes. Part of the initial funding, obviously, for Eden Council taking a book Vereda House and doing the development works from the Salix Finance. Has that grant funding to Eden Council, due to the delays with construction, etc., been impacted, or does the council still have that finance as part of its budget line for the delivery of Breeder House?
I think we can answer that question.
Yeah, happy to answer. Yeah, the funding's still in place and it hasn't been impacted.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we come to questions from members, and I believe we have 3 questions tonight from Councillor Rain. Would you like to, are you all right standing up there?
Yeah. You all happy?
Thank you.
Question number 1, regarding agenda item 11, Eden Play Area Improvement Fund recommendations. 1.2 of the report seeks to increase the maximum award from £10,000 to £12,500. That broadly reflects inflationary increases since its inception in 2013-14. 3.1, the Eden Play Area Fund was established at the start of the financial year 2022 to 2023, and a total of £100 was available for the Play Area Improvement Fund at the start of the current financial year. Question 1. Could the community portfolio member explain why, on the 9th of September 2022, Crosby Ravensworth Play Area Refurbishment Group were advised to apply to the Community Fund for a grant as the Play Area Fund was not open due to the fact the terms and conditions hadn't been agreed? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rain. Councillor Sharp, would you?
Thank you, Councillor Rain. It is felt that there has been an element of misunderstanding in this question being asked. The communities team has been in regular touch with Crosby Ravensworth Group, including Councillor Rain, for a good number of months, and has always recommended an application to the Playground Fund rather than the Community Fund. It was resolved when the Playground Fund was established that the Eden Community Fund panel would be used to assess all applications for the Playground Fund, as they had considered a large number of play area grant applications previously. The original intention was to have the application process for the Playground Fund to open in April to be considered by the first Community Fund panel meeting for 22-23 in June. However, this was delayed due to the officer team concentrating on distributing the Jubilee Grant Fund at that time. The result being that the first application deadline for the Playground Fund was the 9th of September 2022 for the panel meeting on the 3rd of October 2022, with the recommendations being submitted to the November Cabinet. I'm pleased to say that the report at item 11 on tonight's agenda recommends to Cabinet that Crosby Ravensworth Parish Councillors will be awarded the full £10,000 applied for under the Playground Fund.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary? Are you going to go on to your next question?
Yes, I do have a supplementary question. Why was this fund not advertised way back in April? We were very late finding out about it.
I can give you a written answer for that one.
Thank you. Do we go to the next question?
Yes, thank you.
Question number 2. Due to the short time frame between the agenda being published and this meeting, Crosby Ravensworth Play Area Group haven't had the opportunity to obtain revised quotes. Our last quote in August had increased by £6,000 in a time frame of 4 months. We are expecting a similar increase in the next quote. The Cabinet has quite rightly acknowledged inflation. The delay in that acknowledgement has already created a disadvantage to Crosby Ravensworth Play Area Renovation Group. Will this Cabinet consider increasing the maximum amount of £10,000 applied for by Crosby Ravensworth Play Area Group in line with the new maximum of £12,500 to neutralise the disadvantage this late acknowledgement regarding inflation?
Thank you.
Thank you. I've considered the request and will table an amendment to the recommendations in item 11 for this increased amount to be applied to the 2 applications for funding received bearing in mind the remaining borrower funding that's available.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have a supplementary?
I don't have a supplementary question on that one, but I have a third question. If the answer to question 2 is a no, please can I ask question 3, in taking into consideration that Eden District Council has had applications for a fifth of the play area grant budget, leaving £80,000 unallocated, with Eden District being disbanded in just over 4 months' time, I'm aware that applicants can only apply annually. Would a second application for £2,500 from Crosby Ravensworth Play Area be permitted and considered in the next round of funding applications as a way of a goodwill gesture and bringing them in line with all new applications?
Thank you.
Because question 2 was a yes, unless everybody votes against my amendment, you'll be receiving the added amount.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, agenda item 6 is a single site programme, and this is on page 7 of your packs, and I'd like to hand over to Councillor Greenwood, whose resources portfolio falls under her portfolio.
Thank you, Chair. It has been a long-held ambition of Eden District Council for at least the last 10 years to address the problems associated with the maintenance and accessibility of the Mansion House and Town Hall. Beautiful and prestigious as they are, both buildings have problems. They are not easily accessible for anybody with mobility difficulties. They are expensive to maintain in terms of building fabric and increasingly expensive because of escalating heating costs. It is more important than ever now to keep a central hub of local service provision in Eden. The new unitary authority covers a huge area as far as Barrow, and the new council has agreed to use Farida House as an anchor building for its purposes for the future. The building will be a fit-for-purpose exemplar in that it will provide office and meeting space for members and officers and public sector partners, maintaining a strong Eden presence for the new unitary authority. A building that achieves Passive House standard in terms of being carbon neutral, and a building that significantly reduces current operating costs and more than pays for itself in its savings on the public purse. The initial revenue savings projections on utility costs for Breeder House over a 25-year period were estimated at £1.02 million. Given the significant increase in utility costs, the estimates have been recalculated at £4.8 million. All-inclusive cost savings over 25 years have increased from 6.18 million to 10.7 million. It makes a solid business case to complete this project. It is an investment in a valuable asset in our area, securing jobs and social and economic well-being for the future. There have been some technical issues with the build over the summer that have slowed the programme, and these need to be explained as there are cost implications. Asbestos was discovered behind the outer concrete cladding tiles, and further asbestos was uncovered in the foundations. This has now all been removed and disposed of carefully, and clean air certificates have been issued. The concrete support pillars were found to have been compromised by previous building occupants or contractors, and requires a temporary bracing to allow the construction to recommence safely. Steel reinforcement is needed as a solution to strengthen the building, and this is now being installed. The concrete support pillars and floors were tested for carbonisation and need to be treated by applying a protective coating to them. This is all in hand. The costs of material and labour are affected by inflation in the construction sector, and this is because of the conflict in the Ukraine, the handling of the pandemic, and the rises in fuel and utilities costs. The construction contract sum for the contract is was £2.9 million, which did include a £200,000 contingency for unexpected construction issues that are not accounted for. So the estimated cost of inflation now represents an increase of £800,000 and adjustments for the construction issues and extended programme £677,000, resulting in an increased contract sum of £1.47 million. It is proposed to pay for this extra cost from an increase in capital receipts, which generates an additional £500,000, and a combination of programme slippage and additional funding. We are confident that the in-depth analysis undertaken by the project team and the contractor's supply chain means that we do not anticipate any need to allocate further additional funding in future. We are very much looking forward to seeing the finished building in spring 2023. And so, Chair, I would move the recommendation to Cabinet that Cabinet notes the delivery of the key project objectives, that Cabinet recommends to Council a variation in the capital programme to enable the completion of the project as detailed in section 8.3, that Cabinet recommends to Council an amendment in funding as set out in 8.5, and that Cabinet agrees to receive an update on the single site programme transitional arrangements in January 2023. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions for this? I've got a question I'd like to, because I know that there is scepticism about this project, I think Councillor Freeman in her report actually sort of underplayed the unsuitability of the Town City as a modern building for working purposes. I can ask about the unsuitability, both its illegality from an accessibility point of view. I mean, it's actually an illegal building, and its Wi-Fi doesn't work. It's too hot and too cold. You can't talk to anybody. It is not a fit for purpose building. But my question, excuse me, falling into that trap. So I've been told that the key question to ask is, had we known now what we know then, would this have still been a project that should have been proceeded with? And I was just wondering if any of the officers who've been involved in the project and very experienced in development and so on and so forth, and construction, would be able to tell us about that. Thank you.
I'll take that question, Chair. I think the report sets out the reasons why, even if we knew, although we don't have the gift of foresight, the key reason why the Reader House still plays an incredibly important role in the future of looking after the best interests of Eden residents and businesses in the new authority. And that is because, I do believe this, that without the Reader House being in place, I think it's highly unlikely that the new authority would have identified the existing stock of the Town Hall and Mansion House as being anything near fit for purpose, as what has been agreed by West Midlands First Council as a key hub for public services in this area. From a financial and a commercial point of view, it seems almost perverse, but this is the case, that even with the increased capital costs that have been identified due to the technical issues and the contract price inflation, that the business case for the project has actually strengthened rather than got worse due to the circumstances that we find, particularly around utility prices. And I would say that business case modelling has taken a prudent view in terms of, whilst utility prices are extremely high, they've been projected for only a prudent amount of time, and then have modelled a downward trend. So we've actually taken a pretty conservative view on what the business case would be. So in terms of both the purpose of the building and the fact that it makes commercial sense, I think the answer to that question is quite clearly yes.
Just have one point to that, because that's only because the building is a passive house building. So it's only because the building is has such good green credentials that those savings will be drawn over time. So I think that's a really important point to that. I agree with everything that Les said.
Thank you. And could I just ask, just further on the passive house standard and so on. So we did declare a climate emergency with a goal of reducing in district councils' emissions, and that is a commitment that we made in 2019. And I think if you look at what's happening at COP27 and what's happening as we see with weather changes and floods and so on and so forth, this is a reality rather than something that is an optional extra. And if you wouldn't mind, I was wondering, I haven't asked you about this, but Councillor Ruddle is actually a part of his portfolio is the improvement of EDC's estate and otherwise, and I wondered if you just have a few words to say about it.
Certainly, Councillor Taylor. Yeah, we've started looking at doing energy reports on our buildings.
So particularly Breeder House.
Breeder House and the rest of our estates, looking to see what we can do to get rid of the carbon footprint, to look at the energy usage and what changes that we can make to make them carbon less. And in the transition to going to Westminster Furnace as well, the greater picture. So looking at the buildings, part of the job that I'm doing at the moment of the working group is looking at the estates overall to make sure that not only Eden, but South Lakes and Barrow reduces their carbon footprint going into looking at 2037 as our point.
Thank you very much. Sue, do you have any further questions? Councillor Roberts.
Thank you. I think it's probably to lesson like timescales. Spring of 2023. So do we have a firm date, or is it because of the works that had to be done? Is that putting up the programme back slightly?
The programme has gone back from the turn of this calendar year to a projected finish date of the construction and fitting out works of the end of March of 2023. But perhaps that would be, I would say, whilst we're not foreseeing any further technical issues, weather is always a big issue on construction jobs, so that still does remain a risk. But at the moment, we're looking at for construction, the contract will be completed by the end of March next year.
That's great, thank you very much.
Thank you. So, do we have a second of this? Councillor Robinson, sorry, I forgot. And do we need to enter into debate also? So, shall we move to a vote? And all those in favour? Thank you very much. So. And now, moving on to agenda item 7, which is an Inspiring Eden update. And Councillor Robinson is listed on page 15.
Yes.
Bear with me while I get there. Thank you. So if I could just pass over to the Economy and Enterprise portfolio holder, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. Right, members. The Inspiring Eden delivery programme has made significant progress over the last couple of months in bringing forward the 126 expressions of interest that have been received. And in particular, I'm pleased to confirm the following projects have received funding and are already underway. So first of all, as we've discussed with Appleby Town Council tonight, there's £100,000 of investment to support them the council's improvements to the cloisters as a legacy project as part of the Appleby Heritage Soul Initiative. There's also £75,000 support of Newton Rig Limited to open up and deliver the new training centre at Appleby Heritage Centre. We've put £8,000 towards the extension of the Inspire and Eden Youth Co-op, being delivered by Inspire for another year, that will support local vulnerable young people with access to employment, training, housing and other support services. This has included £5,000 worth of investment from the County Council and working with partners to secure just under another £40,000 from the Department of Work and Pensions. And that's proven an extremely good way of partnership working. £90,000 worth of investment into a range of pilots to support and develop travel for 16 to 19-year-olds to help them access education and training and realise their ambitions. And this has included working closely with our MP Neil Hudson to develop initiatives with Paulson Federation, Ullswater Community College and Myerscough, as well as setting up an Inspire and Eden bursary scheme to support individuals. To date, we've had 36 applications, and it's making a big difference. It is a pilot scheme, and we want to have the evidence to show that going into Westbourne and Furness, supporting our young people to gain their skills, is a really important way to go. We've put £80,000 worth of investment into the Inspire and Eden Farmer Support and Advisory Service, which is being delivered by the Farmers Network and is already supporting a number of farmers through a range of one-to-one group support sessions, and with particular focus on decarbonisation, diversification and supporting the next generation of young farmers. There's £13,000 worth of investment into arts and culture, which is including working with the Shakespeare Globe to bring performances to the district and support art-based engagement sessions with schools and businesses. And I'm also pleased to confirm that funding has been agreed to bring forward a number of projects over the coming weeks and months. These include Alston Row Golf Club Observatory, New Square to Angel Square improved link, changing places facilities to assist disabled access across a range of attractions, Kirby Stephen Youth Centre and Kirby Stephen Jubilee Park redesign entrance. There are also another range of other projects that have been developed over the coming weeks, and I will make further announcements in due course on those. The Inspire and Eden Enterprise Hub Levelling Up bid. We're due to hear from government on the outcome of our £8 million Inspire and Eden Enterprise Hub bid by the end of December. This project was also included in the county's bid for the investment zone status, and a result is in a position as a strategic employment site for the new Westmoreland and Furness Council. We're really getting on the road with that, and it's well established now. The Inspire and Eden UK Shared Prosperity Fund, in addition to Eden's £1,990,203 allocation, we've also had a rural top-up of another £1,051,689. And the rural bit is all capital funding. This means we've totaled just over £3 million for the 3-year period from 2022 to 2025. A rural addendum will be submitted by the 30th of November with a focus on both investment in community and economic infrastructure. In the current year, Eden is seeking to allocate £241,000 to a range of projects. The assessment will be completed by the end of November, and any spend will be subject to government approval of Eden's investment plan, which is expected to follow the government's autumn budget statement this Thursday. Moving on to Penrith Borderlands Inclusive Growth Deal, EDC are currently focused on leading on 6 projects of detail within the report. But in particular, I'd like to highlight the following 3 schemes. Penrith Town Hall Arts and Culture Hub to repurpose the building as a focus for arts and cultural activity in the wider Eden area. And I went to the themes, it was absolutely excellent. Acoustics were brilliant. Penrith Station Gateway with a focus on station buildings and the scope to develop a transport interchange and gateway to the town and the wider area. And the Castle Park improvements to enhance facilities and the quality of the offer for residents and visitors. We're also working with a local commercial interest to explore the reuse of the 2 Lions building in the new squares. I'm going to commend this report to the Cabinet and the excellent progress that's been made with the Inspiring Eden initiative. And I will also extend my real debt of gratitude to the staff who have absolutely risen to the challenge. They have really, really been motoring, and I think, you know, I'm absolutely chuffed with what we've done. So I will recommend that report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Robinson. Does anybody have any questions? Well, I would like to second it and just to comment, to add to Councillor Robinson's thanks to the staff who've been doing amazing work, and also thanks to Councillor Robinson, without whom this would not have, whose zeal, drive, inexorability, etc. Has made this happen under, you know, difficult circumstances, because this is, you know, coming out of COVID and into LGR and all the rest of it. You know, I mean, it's sort of starting things basically new.
Yes.
Yes. It's well done. Well done. Councillor Sharp, you're going to say something?
Yeah, no, it's just to offer my thanks as well. And the programme in its entirety is absolutely brilliant, but I just wanted to pick up and say thanks for a couple of things, in particular to do with young people. So the Eden Youth Hub, to get investment for another year on that is fantastic. I think that's really well deserved for a lot of hard work, supporting vulnerable young people, and the support for Getty Stephen Youth Centre is excellent. And obviously, as coming from Ulster, the connectivity and the transport for 16 to 19-year-olds is something that I've been working on for 20 years, and since working with young people rurally, and it's brilliant.
You and I both know how difficult it is for them. I would like to actually also say, you know, thanks to our MD Neil Woodson as well. Because Neil's worked very closely with this. We're on regular meetings and regularly exchanging a lot of good communication and keeping on the same lines. You know, it's really important that this has been a real team effort in partnership working, Department of Work and Pensions as well, in Inspiring. Everybody is really, really pulled for Stocksend. So it really is a good example of it. Thank you.
Good. And so I noticed you were talking about the investment zones. I think we've had pretty much heads up that we wave bye-bye to the investment zone.
Well, you can.
And I hope we don't wave bye-bye to any of the rest of it. So yes, everybody keep that. Light your candles. Good. Does anybody have anything further to say? No. So, Councillor Robinson, I seconded it. So can we vote? Thank you very much indeed. So, moving on to agenda item 8, which is on page 37 of your pack, and this is the Q2 Corporate Performance Report, which falls into my portfolio as leader. So here we have the summary against progress of the Council's current performance targets for Q2. So this is retrospective, from 1st of July to the 30th of September. And another part of the purpose 1.2 is to inform the Cabinet an overview and scrutiny committee of any areas of concern. And it also suggests that overview and scrutiny might make recommendations to the Cabinet, and I assume that none have been made to us.
The meeting's not till December.
Have they not seen it yet? Okay, so we get recommended, we get them coming back in. Thank you. Here we have some complicated tables and some so the software, which makes life considerably easier for Amanda Yellowly, who has been at last had to put down her hand knitting and could actually put it into cyberspace. So thank you very much to Amanda, who isn't here, for doing for conceiving this project and bringing it to this very clear and useful format. Thank you very much. So we go through the corporate plan dashboard with where A is single site, C is zero carbon strategy, etc., etc. And when we have letters missing, these are things which have been completed and have fallen off the dashboard because they have been brought to fruition. I think that if we go through here, everybody will see their projects, which are their favourite projects, which councillors, if you wish to call these out later, you are very welcome. The corporate plan dashboard comes to an end, and then we come on to the corporate key performance indicators on page 52 and 53 of your pack. And I think I would just like to, if you, there is sort of like extremely gratifying process throughout the corporate plan dashboard. When we come to the key performance indicators, there are two areas which are below target, which I'd just like to refer to. One is building control, and this is referred to in 4.30 of the pack, which is on page 48, and I think that is a sort of hangover from an earlier this in the last quarter, it additionally was below target, and that this is because there was some raising of the standards in legislation. So there was a fire sale of building control applications to get ahead of having to have more demanding standards to reach. So there's been a sort of like considerable increase in the numbers of applications to process, and obviously these cannot be done except in real time. So that is the reason for the red in building control KPI 2. The other one, which which is unfortunate, is that we are below the perhaps above that. Our staff sickness is more than we would like, and so that is to be regretted. I would say that we're still coming out of COVID, where the people obviously have to stay at home, and I think one of the good things about COVID is people are less likely to walk around coughing and spluttering in everybody's faces and thinking they're being a hero. So I think we can look forward to that, and I trust and hope that there aren't any other sort of like reasons for. Obviously the staff are under stress because of LGR and the uncertainty of the future, even though actually the reality is that the future is not uncertain, because staff will continue into Worthington and Furness in exactly the same terms and conditions and doing the same job for District Council as they are at the moment, except at the very, very top layer. So the large numbers of staff are their jobs and their conditions are completely secure. So I just took a moment to refer to that in relation to the possibility of staff stress. Councillors, is there anything that you wish to do you have any shout-outs? Councillor Derbyshire.
I was going to highlight on page 54 that we've got a green tick against a number of households in temporary accommodation, but it is going up, and you can see on page 56 the reports there. And as it highlights, use of temporary accommodation continues to be maximised where possible. High number of presentations and the lack of affordable accommodation in both social housing and private rented sector continues. And I would like to thank the staff, both the District Council and the Housing Association, for all their hard work to ensure those people coming to us who are struggling because of their maintaining their tenancies or maintaining their mortgages nowadays are getting the help. And so I'd just like to thank staff for all the hard work they're doing on that. And it's likely to be getting worse rather than better in months and possible years to come with the financial situation.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp.
On page 49, as we're here as well, the Appleby football pitch is nearly completed.
Councillor Tonkin.
I like it to be noted on page 53 the absolutely 100% missed refuse collection. And thank all the operatives, officers, etc. that have contributed to that.
Thank you. Councillor Ruddle.
Yeah, on page 50, greening Eden businesses. That's been very, very successful. The grant panel met yesterday, and in principle we agreed grants for 7 businesses in Eden for just over £100,000. So we've got £4,000 left in the kitty on that one. And we've started to get for the COP26 fund for helping communities with their becoming zero carbon. We've started to get applications coming in there as well. It was slow to start off, but they've started to come in.
Good. So, so if people are quick off the mark, there is still time to.
There's still money in the fund.
There's
Yes.
still time for greening your parish and for biodiversity project also. So. I would like to make the recommendation there, unless anybody else has anything to say, that we note the progress for quarter 2, and that is all we need to do. And I would just like to thank all staff involved in having such achievement under difficult circumstances with coming out of college and still with LGR on the horizon. So do I have a second? Councillor Greenwood, thank you very much. And will you go to the vote? Thank you very much. We have agreed this. Agenda item 9 is quarter 2 financial monitoring 22 to 23, and this is in the resources portfolio, so I'll hand back to Councillor Greenwood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. This report presents the financial position for the year 2022 to 2023 after 6 months. After adjusting for the local government reorganisation reserve, which was paid last year, there is a revenue underspend to date of £508,000. For the majority of the corporate priorities set in February, the budget was spread evenly through the 2022 to 23 year. However, in reality, spend cannot start in many cases until fully developed plans have been prepared, approved and launched. £208,000 of the underspend relates to projects where the planning phase took place in the first half of the year, and the projects have now either been launched or are nearing launch. £26,000 relating to resourcing of corporate priorities, where resources have now been identified and procured and will be used in the second half of the year to achieve the priorities. A further £120,000 underspend is from additional income in Treasury management. The delay to some of the capital projects and the increase in interest rates has significantly increased our interest rate income for the first half of the year. The forecast for the year shows an anticipated overspend of £231,000 after adjusting for the local government reorganisation reserve. This is mostly due to the staffing market, currently with the uncertainty of local government reorganisation, making it difficult to recruit staff to payroll, and instead the need to use agency staff at an inflated cost. Since the time of writing the report, the 2022 to 23 annual pay award for staff has been approved at £1,925 per person, adding an additional £300,000 to the projected overspend. Other pressures and savings are included in the report in sections 3.9 to 3.11, and that refers to the leisure centre utility costs and the savings on the corporate priority dog waste collection. The capital programme continues to progress, albeit with some delays for a variety of external reasons. In particular, the single site programme update, considered earlier in this meeting, should be noted. Overall, there is a projected underspend of £431,000 over the year. And I too would just like to thank some staff and some officers for all their hard work in getting the Q2 report out at the same time as the Q2 performance report. I'd just like to thank Paul, Marianne, Ian and all the finance staff for a very good job well done. And thank you also for sending us beautiful printouts, which are fabulous. Thank you. And we can actually read those. They're so nice. Thank you.
Big printouts of materials.
Well, well done, everybody. Massive team effort. Excellent. And I just want to move the recommendations, Chair, that Cabinet note the Q2 forecast revenue outturn position as set out at Appendix 1, to note the Q2 capital monitoring position set out at Appendix 2, and to note the pressures, savings and additional income set out in sections 3.9 to 3.11. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Greenwood. Does anybody have any questions? So, would you like to second this? Councillor Tonkin, thank you. And do we wish to enter into debate? Just to express our enthusiasm and gratitude. Councillor.
We just voted on
No. We just voted. Oh, you voted? Yeah. Okay. Voted. Good bit quick. Thank you very much. Agenda item 10, domestic abuse policy. This is in the community portfolio, so Councillor Sharp, please.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report this evening is to seek the approval of the updated domestic abuse policy and delegated approval for the associate domestic abuse procedures. Safeguarding is a collective responsibility and is about protecting people's health, well-being and a right to live free from harm, abuse or neglect, and everyone who comes into contact with children and adults at risk has a role to play. No single agency can achieve the support and protection of children, young people and adults at risk alone, and this is recognised in the relevant legislation which places a duty on organisations to work together to prevent and stop the risk and experience of abuse and neglect. Our safeguarding policy and processes were reviewed and approved by Cabinet on the 20th of September 2022 to ensure that the Council continues to fulfil its obligations with regards to safeguarding adults and children in our district. This policy aims to ensure that a consistent approach to domestic abuse experienced by employees of Eden District Council is embedded in line with our safeguarding procedures. And it is important that our procedures are clear to all officers and members and that we embark on an appropriate training programme for domestic abuse. District councils in the local government area are under a duty to cooperate and are expected to fulfil their duties under the Childcare Act of 2004. However, the key responsibility for safeguarding lies with the County Council or other unitary authority, and it's important to remember that it is not the responsibility of any one member, officer, volunteer or contracted service provider to determine whether abuse is or has taken place. The role of the member, officer and volunteer or contracted service provider is to inform, not to investigate or judge. The Eden District Council is not responsible for investigating any safeguarding incidents or allegations involving children, young people or vulnerable adults. While the Council is engaged with partner agencies around cross-cutting issues such as domestic violence, tackling racism and hate crimes, etc., issues regarding safeguarding may also emerge and need to be considered. So in the appendix there is the domestic abuse policy, which is an extensive policy. It goes through everything in some quite good detail. I'm not going to go through it all, but at the back of the policy in Appendix 1 and 2 there's some really good signposting for either local services or to the national services that exist, and also signs that you might be able to pick up on of someone who might be experiencing domestic abuse. It also, in the policy, goes through training and the role of colleagues and the part that we play within the policy. So I would like to move the recommendations that at 2 and 2.1 it's recommended that Cabinet approve the domestic abuse policy attached to Appendix A. And 2.2 it's recommended that approval of the domestic abuse procedures is delegated to the safeguarding lead and the portfolio order for communities.
Thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, it was not, I was going to smile very nicely at the comments from Carol at the back of the room. Nelson Sharp and myself sit on the Eden Domestic Abuse Forum for many years, and I know that it's an issue, I hope not in the Eden District Council, but other people living in Eden, and it's useful to get information out, public in general, but specifically to businesses, to say, these are what you could be looking at, these are the signs and symptoms of somebody maybe, everybody or staff maybe struggling with domestic abuse, and help is available. So I would hope that you can use the information in the policy to be able to publicise that help is available to people who are struggling.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for this? Councillor Green, thank you very much. Do anybody wish to debate? So shall we? Thank you very much. That's unanimously. Agenda item 11, the Eden Play Area Improvement Fund recommendations, and this is also in Councillor Sharp's portfolio. So.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report tonight is to seek the approval of grant funding awards from the Eden Play Area Improvement Fund for the 2 projects that are set out in Appendix A. And the report also seeks approval to increase the maximum award from £10,000 to £12,500. That broadly reflects inflationary increases since its inception in 2013 and 14. The Eden Play Area Improvement Fund was established in 2022 to 2023 to support and develop play area initiatives within the council area. And a total of £100,000 was made available for the improvement fund at the start of this current financial year 2022 to 23. We held a virtual meeting by Microsoft Teams on the 10th of October to assess 2 applicants against the set criteria. The partnership was chaired by myself as a communities portfolio holder and consisted of representatives from Action with Communities in Cumbria, Penrith Action for Community Transition, and individual community representatives. Of the 2 applications considered, all of the applications were recommended for funding for the full requested amount. All the recommended applications and applicants have been checked to ensure they meet all of the criteria. So on Appendix A, there's some details of the 2 community groups who applied for some funding. Crosby Ravensworth Parish Council, so they are doing some improvement works to their play area, replacement of old equipment, improvements to surfacing, a new gate and rebuilding of wall. And the second one is also recreation ground, which is the construction of a pump cycle track. Is this when I make an amendment to the recommendation? Okay. So, I would like to move the recommended, no, would I like to move the amendment, make an amendment? How do I say it? Make an amendment. And the amendment is as follows. So 2.1, that the maximum grant that applicants can apply for be increased from £10,000 to £12,500. 2.2, that the value of the recommended award for the 2 applications set out in Appendix A are increased from £10,000 to £12,500. And 2.3, that grants from the Eden Play Area Improvement Fund be agreed for 2 projects set out in Appendix A to a total of £25,000.
Thank you. So just to clarify this recommendation, the amount of £10,000 given to these 2 projects were because that was the maximum in the fund, rather than at the time, and that the amount of each grant is actually, I mean, each project is considerably in excess of
And during the panel meeting, the panel members were all very supportive of the recommendation to increase to 12,500 because of the probationary.
Okay. And it might have been as a result of these applications that the amount has been raised.
Yeah.
So we clarified that. So you've made that amendment. I would like to second the amendment. So we vote on the amendment. We have approved the amendment. So we now proceed to back to the substantive motion. Substantive motions.
Do you want to say it again?
No, I think that is fine. Does anybody wish to make any further comment? No. Who seconded it?
No, not yet.
Okay, we need a seconder for that. Councillor Taunton, I think it was in his. So, and we vote to? Oh, yes, okay. Thank you very much. So, Councillor Sharp had to abstain because of interest. You happy? Councillor Taunton. So, agenda item 12, yes, is the Eden District Council Community Fund recommendations, which again is in Councillor Sharp's portfolio.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to seek approval of grant funding awards from the Council's Community Fund to the 5 projects set out in Appendix A. The report also seeks approval to increase the maximum award from £10,000 to £12,500. That broadly reflects inflationary increases since its inception in 2013-2014. The Eden District Community Fund was established in 2013 to 2014 to support and develop community initiatives within the council area. The Community Fund combines 3 previous grant schemes: the Community Fund, Rural Infrastructure Fund and the Village Hall Grant. The Rural Infrastructure Fund was discontinued after 2013 and 14. A total of £110,000 was made available to the Community Fund at the start of this current financial year of 2022 to 2023. The Eden District Council Community Fund Partnership Panel held a virtual meeting via Teams on the 10th of October to assess 5 applicants. The partnership was chaired by myself as the community's portfolio holder and consisted of representatives from Action with Communities in Cumbria, Penrith Action for Community Transition and individual community representatives. Of the 5 applications considered, all of the applications were recommended for funding for the full requested amount, and they've all been checked to ensure they met all of the criteria set within the fund. So, Appendix A of this report sets out 5 projects. We had South Tynedale Railway Preservation, who were asking for some money to restore their steam locomotive harbour. We had Skeleton Top in Memorial Hall, which was to create a net zero carbon building and to make improvements to their building, particularly to the accessibility. Castle Park Bowling Club to renovate their green. Alton Memorial Hall, asking for some funding to go towards the construction of a car park adjacent to the hall. And Crosby Ravenswood Tree Group to replace some diseased trees and to be part of their developing local landscape new tree programme. So I'd like to move the recommendations, which are set out in 2, which is 2.1. It is recommended that grants from the Council's Community Fund be agreed for the 5 projects set out in Appendix A for a total of £37,313.20. And 2.2, that the maximum grant that applicants can apply for to be increased from £10,000 to £12,500 for the future transfers available.
Thank you.
Just for clarity, what is the steam locomotive power?
It's a train. It's an engine that pulls the trains at South Tynedale Railway in Alton.
Did they not correct it? It said it should be steam locomotive.
Did it not?
Good. Thank you very much. So, question.
When's the next time? 6th of January is the deadline
So the next,
And that's for the play improvement fund as well.
right, so the next tranche, I'm looking at Andrew, 6th of January, so that's quite a tight time scale for both community fund and play areas.
Yeah.
So, where's John?
Comms are going out.
Comms
There's
are
a new
going,
package
yeah.
of comms we've put together for both of the grants.
Can I make a point here? I was at a meeting with the Board of County Council last night, thinking of making a grant application to purchase an allotment. They presently lease it under the regulations. Can they purchase it?
I have no idea. Yeah, so
We have to take some advice on that. Get back to you.
Good. So I don't think anybody's seconded it, have they? Councillor Roddle, thank you. And does anybody have any further questions? No, thank you. And so we go to a vote. Excellent. So agenda item 13 is any other items which the chair decides are urgent. I have no urgent items. Agenda item 14 is the date of the next scheduled meeting, and the date of the next scheduled meeting cabinet agreed as the 20th of December 2022. And we don't have we're not going anywhere.
Town hall.
We're not, I don't know if anybody's got anybody has we were toying with going places, but maybe we should go in the new year. So thank you very much everybody for meeting us now.